Sono Joe Volpe, l'editore del Corriere Canadese, l'unico quotidiano in forma cartacea e adesso anche digitale in tutto il Nord America e sono anche, fortunatamente, l'editore di Corriere Canadese TV. Um, Oggi vogliamo trattare di un tema che è scottante non solo in Italia, ma anche negli Stati Uniti e di conseguenza anche in Canada, cioè dei genitori che sono divisi dai loro figli in stato di immigrazione. Come sappiamo tutti in Italia il ius soli come tema è importantissimo, l'invasione praticamente di tutte queste povere anime che vogliono venire dall'Africa in Canada, in Italia e poi dagli Stati Uniti, ultimamente che abbiamo visto il presidente Trump che divideva le famiglie dai loro figli quando entravano in America. Vogliamo esaminare anche la situazione qui in Canada. So, with me, I have today a lawyer who's expert in immigration matters and who has dealt with issues related to immigration and division of parents from their kids. I wanted to get his perspective and his perception of the issues that have developed over the course of the last couple of weeks, especially in the United States, but by reflection in Canada. And that is the matter of taking children away from their parents as they're being processed through the immigration system. So, Mr. Borax,
Sir.
Thank you very much for coming to join us. You saw from our brief description of the situation, I think I have it pretty well accurately,
Sure,
don't I?
that's right, yeah.
So you have people who are leaving a country of origin for whatever reason. Let's assume the very worst of reasons. In other words, the conditions were bad. It's the usual push factor that brings them to the United States. The United States says, we have a process. You're not following it. We're going to take you away from your kids and process you properly. Is that a good idea?
It's never a good idea to separate kids from parents, and anybody who says otherwise is, it's beyond the pale.
No, but the defense for that is, now let me play the devil's advocate for a moment. So somebody comes into your country, into your home illegally without permission, they're automatically a criminal.
Absolutely.
What about the kids?
Now, the kids...
No, hold on. What about the kids? Are they...
Well, Joe, no, let me get right to the point. When you were things have changed since when you were minister.
Yeah, well, let's forget about me being minister.
No, let's not forget about it.
Well,
when you were minister, you would have to kick out the kids together with the parents. That's what happened when you were minister.
Well, that's what happens all the time.
Well, but there was a big change in December 2015.
Well, let me get to that in a minute, but let me get the process.
Okay.
Let me get the process first of the concept. Parent comes in.
Sure.
Trump says, anybody says, because you've come here illegally, you are a criminal.
That's right.
All right. What are the consequences from a legal perspective of an adult being a criminal and being accompanied by a child? That's anybody under 18, but obviously we're thinking of kids who are very young age, as we saw in the United States.
In the States and in Canada, it's exactly, the concept was the same, not anymore. Before December 2015.
No, I don't want to go there. Just a moment.
The concept is exactly the same, Joe.
No, but everybody wants to understand what it is that prompts a policymaker to say the parent's illegal, I'm going to separate him from the kid, and the child is put away in a detention camp all by himself or herself. Does that make sense legally?
Legally and practically, the answer is no.
Okay, so now let's go to 2015.
Okay.
So in 2015, you're making reference to an item, and I wonder if you can bring it up. You're making reference to a decision by the Supreme Court of Canada.
That's right.
Now, what does it say?
What that case said, because historically, let's go back to the basics. The minister in Canada has the right, in the States not necessarily, but here in Canada, the minister has the right to set up programs allowing people to stay in this country even if they broke the law in coming here. The minister has that right. In the States,
But doesn't have that obligation.
doesn't have an obligation, absolutely not.
Okay, so the minister, he or she can say, it doesn't matter, Mr. Borax, it doesn't matter that you came across the border illegally, because you've got children here, that's one example, I'm going to give you an opportunity to stay. That's the right. He has the right to do it, but he's not obliged to do that.
The minister is not obliged to do it, and the minister didn't do it. The
Now,
minister,
when we say the minister, we really mean the minister and his or her delegates. So every immigration official becomes the minister because that
well, not
immigration...
necessarily, because the minister gives guidelines to his officials. And the ministerial guidelines for the humanitarian program did not carve out children as something special. The Supreme Court carved them out, but the minister has the power to create this program, humanitarian compassion.
It's there.
It's there, and then the minister has the right to give guidelines to his officials.
Or instructions.
Or instructions. And those and when you were minister, the instructions, you didn't...
But I'm not the guy being
Oh,
interviewed.
yeah, but hold on a second here. But when you were there, and all your predecessors, and all the guys who came after you, the instructions were, there was no special instructions for children.
In other words, treat them like human beings.
Treat them as part of the family component, and the adults, the parents.
You know, time goes really quickly here. Well, what that means essentially is that you have to make a decision that's in the best interests of the child. Is that, have I got that right?
The guideline was there, and the officials were not following the guideline according to some lawyers. They went to the
Well, that's
Supreme
why I
Court.
ended up in the Supreme Court.
It went to the Supreme Court, I'm dragging everything back to the Supreme Court because that's when the court made it really clear. Because the legal phrase for adults was they have to show that they don't want to go back or they can't go back where they came from. They'd have to show unusual and undeserved or disproportionate hardship.
But there's no child in the world that can actually prove that there is undeserved. No child is deserving of hardship.
Bingo. And that's what the Supreme Court said in December 2015.
So what did the Supreme Court do with that decision then?
The Supreme Court ordered, didn't suggest, doesn't recommend. As you know, Supreme Court makes orders, not recommendations or suggestions. And the Supreme Court made it really clear to avoid any misunderstanding, told the officer in this case and all other officers that no child, when the officer makes a decision, the officer makes, it's very clear, no child is worthy of any hardship. A child does not have to show unusual or undeserved or disproportionate
It doesn't have
hardship.
to do that because, first of all, they don't have the legal authority to do it. They are minors, therefore, by definition, they can't do any of that. But once you say that you have to act in the best interests of the child, you're taking the place of the parent. What parent separates himself from his child just to prove a point to the law of the country?
Well, there you go again. And
Well, am I right?
you're absolutely right, but there's a disease in this country where officials need instructions or guidelines from the minister.
So the minister hasn't given the guidelines. That's what I'm infer. I don't want to put those words in your mouth, but that's what I infer.
There's bingo again.
So a minister, any minister, has the obligation as well to maintain the integrity of a system.
That's right.
Okay, so, but he has to also take a look at what the Supreme Court
Well,
says.
that's the core to the integrity, I
So
would
you
say.
have practice, you have policy, and you have law, and then you go from law to practice to policy. Have I got that?
Yeah, and for some reason in this country, we separate these three categories that you've defined. And
But you don't have to. Didn't we just say a moment ago that the minister, the immigration minister in Canada, can use a vehicle that's been established in law,
Yep.
in practice, and in policy.
That's right.
It's called an in Canada class. So in that in Canada class, a minister can,
If he has the will.
okay, so he can make all of these adjustments.
That's right.
Without provoking any disruption in the law.
There's no regulations necessary. There's no new regulations, no new statutes. Nothing is necessary. Just do it.
Now, there's a second element in that, as I read it, and I read it from a former colleague of mine who was the CBSA minister, who acknowledges that the Minister for Citizenship and Immigration, whatever the title is now, can develop whatever programs he or she or his government wants
That's right.
to fit people into that previous category.
That's right.
Things like pilot projects. You've been involved in some of them.
I've been involved with pilot projects since '75. We brought in 3,000 Africans from Angola, Mozambique. We brought in 800 Azorians from Portugal. Pilot Project 1, Pilot Project 2. In 91, 92, with the Union Leuna, we brought in 7,000 construction workers in, all the Polish guys. And as recent as a few years ago, undocumented workers here in Toronto. They're all pilot projects.
So there's a way.
There's a way.
What's missing?
The will.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Borax. I want to thank you for coming with us. I want to say to all of our viewers, this is a topic that we've been talking about with the Corriere Canadese for 5 years. Will and way. Immigration. So what tugs at everybody's heartstrings is what we've seen in the United States. By the way, as far as I understand, the United States and Trump don't have a Supreme Court ruling over them.
Well, Joe, that's what shocks me.
Okay.
That, for Trudeau to lecture Trump on this issue is just disgusting.
Well, what's disgusting is the fact that kids are put in a situation where they are suffering unduly. And the Supreme Court has said there's no child deserving of any hardship. There is no such thing.
Trump fixed the problem.
Well, I don't know whether he did or not. His fixture was simply, I'm going to put everybody together and I'm going to lock them up in jail.
Okay, you're right. But he acknowledged the problem. Our guys don't even acknowledge the problem.
Well, then maybe after they look at this, they should. So the issue will be, for all of us, that family reunification, as it used to be called,
That's right.
is something that is preeminent in the demographic policy of any country. I don't mean to lecture our country or anybody else's. As I said at the very beginning, we're talking about a situation that's current in Europe, it's current in the United States, and it's current in Canada. We're going to keep doing this in our pages at Corriere Canadese. We'll do it in Italian and English. In fact, we're the only ones that actually have been following the demographic developments worldwide with great vigor. Our editor-in-chief, Francisco Veronese, you've seen some of this stuff.
Yep, good stuff.
Backs everything up with research and with charts to make it easy for everybody to understand. But what everybody understands is the emotional terror that's inflicted on kids who are separated from their parents. And we should never, ever be identified as something like that.
That's
a
right.
little bit of an editorial position. But thank you for explaining the legalities.
Okay.
The Supreme Court's on your side. The Supreme Court's on the side of all of those who object to what's going on anywhere in the world. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you again on Corriere Canadese TV, on Corcan Media Group, which includes Nossa TV. It includes Ahora Canada in Espanol. We look forward to doing all of this in all 3 languages.